Just like I said, bitch. So-
Wayne Allyn Root for Krush House, and I want to urge every one of you, because this has been a great week. You know, we've been filming Krush House Cappers, Krush House Legends. We have Jim Leyritz on Krush House Legends talking about his great career with the New York Yankees and all his clutch home runs and his 2 World Series championships. We got Ken Thompson on Krush House Cappers talking about the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio last week, and he's got some real gems for you. And on this Krush House show, it's me and Sean Salisbury, former NFL quarterback, talking about the NFL and the upcoming season, which is upon us. It's oh so close. Frank Nicotero is in the wings waiting as well. We got great stuff on this Krush House show today. So without further ado, Sean and Frank, take it away.
If you build it, they will come. And come they did. Fox won the huge ratings battle, and the White Sox won the game in a classic Field of Dreams matchup. Coming out of the cornfield, I'm Frank Moonlight Nicotero. Joining me, as always, shoeless Sean Salisbury. And coming up a little later on this show, the guy who built this show, Wayne Allyn Root. But we have a special guest, so let's get right to it. Let's play ball. Let's crush. Tim Anderson last night with a huge walk-off homer. That was a corny joke. Anyway, guy who had some huge homers for the Yankees joining us, Jim Leyritz. Sean, I see you laughing. Listen, Sean, Jim, welcome as always. You guys know each other, is that right?
Oh yeah,
Yes, we
that's
do.
my guy, man. We sure do. A lot of friends in common, and Jimmy and I have been around and have interviewed him before and had a lot of laughs. It's great to have a guy on. He had a lot more success in the postseason in his career than I had in mine, so great to have Jimmy on with us.
Come on, Sean, you got a Grey Cup. Come on, that's awesome. Listen, Sean.
Okay, let's win. My Grey Cup versus
World
Jimmy's
Series.
2 Super Bowl or World Series rings. Listen, a championship's a championship, but
Exactly.
Jimmy, Jimmy, it's so great to have you on, brother. Man, we're always happy to have great guests like this, and you can bring so much to us, and we're grateful, and we look forward to the laughs and some great insight, man.
No, I appreciate that. It's one of those things that, Sean, just, the memories, the things that we've been through and some of the great moments that we've all shared. It's always nice to talk about those and relive those moments.
Well, let's get right to it, Jim. Listen, you've hit some huge homer for the Yankees. I thought last night the Yankees were going to have this unbelievable comeback with, Stanton's homer and Judge's homer. But, man, did you watch the game? What a production by Major League Baseball. Everything from the beginning to end was awesome.
Yeah, you know what? It was great. Number one, they got Kevin Costner there. I think that was huge. And the fact that he participated was great. But yeah, it's one of those situations you're watching the game and, you're taking it in and you realize that, that just what they're doing. And then to have the game be like it was, the Yankees come back, hit the big home runs, and you think, okay, what better way to end it with the Yankees winning, as far as myself, because I'm a Yankee fan. But poetically, in the way it should end, shoeless Joe Jackson was a White Sox,
Exactly.
and it should end with them winning. And sure enough, Anderson hits the home run, and you could not have written a better script than that situation.
And Frankie and Jim, what I was looking at I saw this across on a show this morning, and Shoeless Joe was one of 15 White Sox that have hit a walk-off home run against the Yankees, and with Tim Anderson last night. So what a great! Wouldn't you know that Shoeless Joe had to be part of the walk-off? He had to do it. And Jim, I was thinking about last night. I've got to tell you, I was kind of a little bitch last night because I was like had tears in my eyes. I was like, Sean, you're not 12 anymore. But I did. The emotion grabbed me, man. And while I know the big stadiums, but that was like it took me back to Little League. And I know, and I said this on Twitter, Jim, and I don't know if you feel the same way. Whether it was a father, a mother, a friend, but I actually begged for that. And I wish I had one more time to play catch with my father. And I was watching that last night, and it really took me back to the movie. And while it's a baseball movie, it was the emotion of a son and his dad. I tell you what, it triggered some emotion in me last night, Jimmy. I don't know if it did for you as a former pro player, but did it?
Well, absolutely. The first thing that my wife and I were watching it, and the first thing she said to me, she said, "You need to take a trip with the boys there and just go check it out and play catch with your kids there." Because when you watch the movie back 20 years ago when you watched it, you got a tear back then because it was such a unique thing for him and his dad to play catch after all this time. but now to see it come to reality, to where actually the player, they play a major league game there. You can actually go there now and play catch on that field. It was pretty cool. And I was with Sean. You're not a bitch, man. I felt the same way. I had a few tears coming down myself.
Me too. Listen, same here. And listen,
Well, Frank, you are a bitch, though.
Well, listen, I thought it was awesome because Costner joined the booth in the fourth inning and he said, it's not really a baseball movie. It is a movie about fathers and sons. Now, listen, I saw the movie in '89 in the theater with my dad, which made it even more special. And then in 2006, I was doing a bunch of stand-up in Iowa. I went to the Field of Dreams. There's me standing right there at the Field of Dreams. I was the only one there. So I went in. This was before camera phones. I went in and I had to buy a disposable camera. Remember the old disposable cameras? And then the woman who sold it to me just stared at me and she went, "You need me to take some pictures of you." And I went, "Yes, you're the only other one there." So imagine being the only person on that field. It was 2006. Thinking about my dad, thinking about playing catch, thinking about the movie, and then to watch that game, Anderson hits the walk-off homer, which, by the way, Tim Anderson admitted today he's never seen the movie. So to have that ending, I mean, Major League Baseball already said they're going to do it again. I just think it was a perfect ball game that they're going to run forever on the MLB Network, I hope. It was just a great game.
Well, and I think John Smoltz said it best. John Smoltz was doing the game last night, and he said, "You know what? This is a memory. You're not going to remember every game during the season. You're not going to, maybe a walk-off or something that's like that. But this is a memory that these guys will have the rest of their lives, and they will remember this more than any other thing that they do, except maybe a World Series championship. But this was a huge event, and I can't imagine being one of those, those 25 guys or 26 guys that were lucky enough to be on that field to play, and just to hear some of their comments about how special it was. And Fox, Major League Baseball, they do it second to none.
Phenomenal.
And to have those guys walk out of the corn stalks before, it was really surreal.
And you know what's interesting, Jimmy, and a little tidbit about that, guys, Todd Callis, who's the play-by-play guy on the TV for the Astros, he and his wife were at the game he had a day off. They went there and he was sitting right behind home plate. So I had him on my show this morning, my radio show. Do you realize they walk through the corn stalks, the fans, to get to the field? When they told him that, he said,
that was cool.
So they go through the corn stalks, so you get to do what they did, the players, and walk through it. And so I thought, man, what a cool gig that you get to do that. And the only thing I was pissed about, Jim, last night, and I don't know if you guys watched this about the broadcast, because it was phenomenal, and I'm actually being a bit facetious, is why Smoltz or Joe Buck did say, when in the fuck are you going to have Yellowstone back for another season, Costner?
Hey, that's one of my favorites, yeah.
I was holding on to joking around a little bit. I said, somebody just, at the end, just say, "Oh, by the way, man, you're a great actor. When the hell is you and Rip coming back on Yellowstone?" So I was thinking about that last night, thinking what an awesome moment it must be for those guys, and to share with their families and to sit in that ballpark as a fan. But man, Jimmy, you've had a lot of awesome moments, but even like I said, I think there's a lot of retired guys say, "Damn, I wish I'd have had the chance to go do that," right, Jim?
Yeah, it was one of those things. My wife said, "Why aren't you there?" And I'm like, first of all, she didn't realize that they gave 7,000 tickets to Iowa residents. They only gave 1,500 to each team, and that was it. And I thought that was such a great thing too, because the people of Iowa should get to enjoy that. I thought it was great that the girl that sang the anthem was from that area.
Awesome.
And then of course they gave the umpire, because I guess it was Cooper that was supposed to be there, who passed away. He was from that area. They gave the home plate umpire last night, who was from Iowa. He stepped in as the replacement because he was from Iowa. So I thought it was just really cool how they did everything.
It was unbelievable, and everything about it, Fox. It was a home run, and
the one thing I did miss.
What's that?
James Earl Jones.
No, they had him. They did have a piece. If you go back, there was a piece with him, and it was him reading the voiceover, but he's lost a lot of the oomph to his voice, so I don't think a lot of people realized it was him. So there was a James Earl Jones thing. He was there. He wasn't there in person, but he did do a voiceover, but it wasn't that booming voice, but you could still hear the cadence a little bit that it was him. But yeah.
Yeah, I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah, and listen, so we talked about Shoeless Joe Jackson real quick. You guys both professional athletes. You guys know the number one rule: you're not supposed to bet on sports, blah, blah, blah. Joe Jackson couldn't read. Clearly probably didn't throw the 1919 World Series, right? Wasn't a part of it. Was acquitted by a judge. But is not in the Hall of Fame. Does Joe Jackson deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
100%, 100%. Especially when you were falsely accused of something. I mean, it was proven. The judge said that he was not involved in it, and look at his numbers, look at the statistics. You could tell he wasn't part of that. But there were certain other guys that were, and he was unfortunately dragged into it.
yeah,
So
Jimmy, I think it's complete bullshit that he's not. Here's why. Especially after what we saw last night. If we are going to
Yes.
make sure that we pub a movie that has Shoeless Joe in it and Ray Liotta doing it, and which we should, and Major League, like I said, as Jimmy mentioned, phenomenal production. It is time. It's okay to apologize from years past. Shoeless Joe's cleats, his whatever uniform, and his bust belongs in Cooperstown, and the sooner they can do it's better. It's long overdue. Yes,
Oh
he
yeah.
belongs in there. And Jim, you're 100% correct. And I bet you'd find very few current and former major leaguers that would disagree with that.
Right, right. And I'm curious, and again, why hasn't it been brought up? Why hasn't it been, it's one of those things that there's certain things that baseball does miss sometimes, and I think that is one of them.
Well, a lot of people online were saying, hey, you're using his likeness to promote the game, and he's supposed to have a lifetime ban. So how can you get away with doing that? And then, saying, wait, well, he's not in the Hall of Fame. Or, yeah, it's unfortunate. But just a great event, I mean, for the White Sox, for the Yankees. And your Yankees, Jim, I want to talk about the Yankees. I think over the past month, they have, a little over the past month, they have the best record in baseball. They're coming on. They got Cole back from COVID. Can the Yankees make the postseason in a tough division with Tampa Bay and Boston and the whole American League? I mean, can they make it? And what do you think? What do you like about the Yankees this year?
Yeah, you know what? It's when they made that trade for Rizzo and for Gallo, it was something that I thought was 2 years overdue. I mean, how do you not have a left-handed power bat in the lineup at Yankee Stadium, on a regular basis? And when Brett Gardner's your power hitter over the last 2 years, yeah, you're in trouble. And it's always, and when they made that trade, and now they've got Severino coming back, Kluber coming back. Haney didn't pitch good last night, but he's a good arm that's going to eat up some innings. I think they got a great shot at turning this around, but I do really think that those two moves with Gallo and Rizzo were so important because now they're going to have to pitch to Judge. They're going to have to pitch to Stanton. They're going to have to pitch to these guys where before they could pitch around them a little bit. And like I said, it's Tampa Bay. I don't know how they keep doing it.
That's amazing.
But they keep doing it, and it's the Red Sox and Yankees have a lot of games left together. So does Tampa. I think it's going to be a fight to the very end.
And yeah, getting well, you mentioned Gardner. Where are they? Where's Mike Paliarulo and Dan Pasqua when you need him for the short porch, Jimmy? Right? And don't kid yourself. Screw Leyritz talking about the Yankees. The Yankees blow. Okay. Leyritz is a damn friggin' Red Sox. Okay. So screw those pinstripes. Listen, there's Leyritz, there's Williams, there's Yaz, there's Schilling, this is my guy, Jim Rice. Leyritz is a friggin' sock, okay? Right. Red Sox. Now, with that being said, that I got that in there and I had to, Jimmy, I really want to know. What's that?
It's funny you say that because I wrote my book called Catching Heat.
Yes.
And the guy that co-wrote it with me, him and his brother, Jeffrey Lyons, the movie critic.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason Jeffrey would do my book, because he's a huge Red Sox fan, was because I played for the Red Sox. He said, I'll do your book only because you played for those 3 months with the Red Sox.
If you wouldn't have played for the Red Sox and you and I weren't buddies, this computer would be shut with a middle finger on it, dude. Screw the Yankees. Jimmy, I honestly, getting into this, I mean, and I know you're humble, but you were confident as a player. And why, I guess the way I'm trying to say it, there's people who are great regular season players, and there's people who also are great postseason players. And your postseasons, there's something that lit up in you as a hell of a player in a double-digit career. Why, Jim? Why were you so good? Why'd you see it better? Why the flair for the dramatic in the postseason? What made you so special?
Well, it was crazy because, I at 14 years old, I met Pete Rose. And I was a bat boy in spring training with a guy named Tommy Brenneman, who was my best friend growing up. You probably know Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, him and I used to go to spring training as bat boys every year for the Reds. And one year, Pete Rose, I was a 14-year-old kid, and Pete Rose gave me some advice and said, you know what? Because I asked him, I said, Pete, how are you so big in the clutch? He was known as Mr. Clutch. and Mr. Hustle and everything else. And he said, you know, Jimmy, I don't treat my first at bat in spring training any different than the last at bat of a World Series. That one at bat is the most important time, no matter what it is, where it is. And so I don't get caught up in everything else that's going around it, because that at bat's the most important thing. And I was 14 years old at the time. I was a basketball player. I played golf and I played baseball in high school. I always wanted the last shot in basketball. I always wanted to be up with the men in scoring position. You know, one of the things my father was a cross between Woody Hayes and Bobby Knight. That's right. The kind of coach dad. Exactly. You know, I scored 20 points. Why didn't you score 30? I go 2 for 4. Why didn't you go 3 for 4? You know, he was that kind of guy. But I think that's what kept me motivated. That saying, hey, listen, I haven't accomplished anything yet. You know, and I think that's really the push that my father gave me, the advice that I got from Pete Rose. I think I took that to heart. And I wanted to be that person from a very young age. And so when these moments came up, again, I didn't think about the moment that was going on. I just said, hey, you know, my dad used to say this: there's only one time in baseball, one time in basketball, that it's an individual sport. And it's when you're in the batter's box and it's when you're shooting a free throw. He said, you can't blame anybody else for not getting a hit or for not making a free throw. And so I took that to heart, and I always wanted to be that person. And, you know, again, Buck Showalter, when I had him in the minor leagues, I got a bunch of clutch hits back then. So when I first got called up, he's like, Jimmy, I want you on my bench till the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th, because I'm going to use you in a position that I know you'll come through, which most young kids can't do. And it was just something that I was fortunate to have, that mindset, that when those big moments came, everything kind of slowed down for me. And Frank, I think that's why I was able to.
Yeah, Frank, I don't know if I've told you this, Frank. You know, we do shows, and I can't. And Jimmy, you'll love this because I'm a pizza buddy, and I love him, and I know you do too. Obviously, now that you shared it, Frankie, have I told you the quick story about Joe DiMaggio and Pete Rose?
Is it the one he told on Howard Stern? I might know this, but go ahead.
Okay, Jimmy, I don't know if Pete's told you this. I'll make it quick. So Pete's on my show, and you know, Pete's a great friggin' storyteller. And speaking of Hall of Fame, let's get this shit over with. He belongs there too.
Yes.
Especially now that betting's legal in baseball.
Yeah. Stick Pete Rose in there. Yeah. So I have Pete Rose on the air, so I'm allowed to say, we can say whatever we want on this damn show, and Pete would love it anyway. So I asked Pete, I said, well, we were talking about baseball and the Yankees and all his idols, right? And I said, Pete, you got to think about Joe DiMaggio. He goes, oh, do I? He said, so in the 60s, he's waiting to go. I mean, it's like he's a young player. He doesn't know Joe DiMaggio. Knows who he is, obviously, Pete being the historian. He says, somebody calls him up. They were going to Vietnam to visit the soldiers, right? And Pete says, Sean, we're getting ready to go. I said, Vietnam? I don't want to fucking go to Vietnam. It's hot. There's a war going on in the jungle. I'm not going there, right? And so Pete's saying this, and I said, then the guy said, well, you'd be going with Joe DiMaggio. He said, I'm going to Vietnam. So they go, they fly, they get to Vietnam. He goes, Sean, it is so hot, it's brutal. It's in the jungle. There's not, I mean, and you know, we got soldiers, and they're going there to entertain him and help, and rightfully so, right? And he said, and Joe DiMaggio could say, he goes, I got to take a shower. and Pete goes, shower? He goes, are you out of your damn mind? He goes, we're in the middle of a jungle. Where are you going to shower? He goes, well, we got to shower where it's the time where a player, somebody will stand up, fill the bucket up, pull the handle, and dump it over him while he's naked. And he goes, well, Sean, let me explain to you what Joe DiMaggio is. He goes, the best way for me to describe Joe DiMaggio is he's a penis with a man hanging off it. And I said, well, no wonder Marilyn Monroe loved him. He goes, yeah, and what I came back was, how in the hell did you get a 56-game hitting streak lugging that damn thing around? And he told it on the air. And Jim, I was crying in tears laughing. And way Pete tells it with his baseball, and he got into it. I'm like, right when he said he went with Joe DiMaggio and had to give him a shower, I was like, oh, the story's over. Then he talked about a penis with a man hanging off it, and talked about if he had a 56-game hitting streak lugging that damn thing around. So classic Pete Rose story of Joe DiMaggio.
And he also said, he goes, you know, athletes, we usually wear 2 shower shoes into the shower. Joe had to wear 3.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's good. That's awesome.
This is the only kind of stuff you get here on Krush House, ladies and gentlemen, right now.
Bingo.
And Sean, you mentioned how clutch Jim was. We know about the huge homers. I want to talk about Game 4 in the '96 World Series. the 3-run homer. That's really the homer I picture. By the way, when you mentioned Woody Hayes and Bobby Knight, I thought of Woody Hayes punching the kid, and I thought of Bobby Knight throwing the chair. Both great coaches, but those are the first images. But
a few wins between them too, right, Frank? They won a few games.
That's okay. Coaching
lives, right?
Yes, they won games, but those are the two images.
I hear you.
You know, him punching the kid. Anyway, Jim, take me through the at-bat against Mark Wallers, the homer that turned the World Series around and helped you guys win it. And obviously, my buddy Denny Nagel got the loss, and I know his dad yelled at you at a charity event. We talked about it yesterday on your podcast. But take me through that at-bat with Mark Wallers.
Yeah, it was a situation where I was not a big guy as far as reading the reports and doing, getting into all the numbers and statistics and things like that. And I said to them, I said, you know what? I was on deck. Darryl Strawberry was standing there, and I said to Straw, hey, listen, I heard this guy throws 100 miles an hour. I only have 2 bats for the game tomorrow, and I'm catching Pettit. Can I borrow one of your bats? And I took one of Darryl Strawberry's bats, and I stood next to Don Zimmer as I went up to the on-deck circle, and I said, hey, Zim, what's this guy got? He said, Jimmy, he throws 100 miles an hour. Just get it ready. And I went up there, and sure enough, the first pitch was 98. The second 2 were sliders. Long story short, he hung a slider. I hit it out, and when we won that game, we knew getting the series back to New York that we were going to beat these guys. And that home run, that World Series, what it did for the Yankee history was second to none. If they would have lost in 96 and 97, Torre would have been fired. Mariano Rivera would have been traded. They wouldn't have had that season in 98. But because they won in 96, George gave Joe one more chance in 98.
Hey, I know we got to get you going because you've only done about 400 of these things a day, Jimmy, but especially with baseball. Do you have a moment or a time when you say what you miss the most about playing and not being in uniform?
Yeah, it's the first
most.
Yeah, I do suite appearances at the stadium and going with all the corporate sponsors and sign autographs. And that's the first question. Do you miss the game? And I said, you know what? I miss the players. I miss the camaraderie. I don't miss the travel. That's the one thing that most people don't realize about baseball is that you are on the road almost 9 months because most of the time you don't live in the same state that you play in. So you're on the road for the first month for spring training, and then you're in that other city for 7 or 8 more months. And with the Yankees in the late 90s, we played till the end of October. So we didn't get home till November. So it was just November, December, January before we had to get back on the road. So that's the one part that you don't miss is the travel.
Wow. Yeah. Well, listen, Jim, having you on the show, this was a pleasure. Sean and I always get super geeked up when we have baseball guys and we get to talk about specific moments in your career and baseball moments that we watch from afar. Wayne Allyn Root is also a giant Yankee fan. I know he's going to want to talk a little football, and Sean and Wayne talked some football earlier. So let's throw to a super fan, Yankee fan, Wayne Allyn Root, and Sean talking some football.
Hey everyone, Wayne Allyn Root. I do this segment every week as part of Krush House, our main show. We've got Krush House Cappers, Krush House Legends, and I always appear on the Krush House show to interact with Sean Salisbury, not only an NFL quarterback for 11 years, not only the winner of the Grey Cup championship in Canada, the best Canadian quarterback and champion, but also an all-around great guy who knows everything about sports, has his own hit radio show on the radio about sports, knows everything about every sport, but boy, is he a football expert, and him and I get along like brothers from another mother. Sean Salisbury, welcome back to the show.
Great to be with you, brother. I'll always look forward to my Fridays with you guys and Frank, and I can't wait to get started. How we doing, brother?
We're doing great. So I guess my first question is, of all the teams who made the playoffs last year, who do you think might be most likely to not return to the playoffs this year? Because we all know, Sean, that every year it's kind of a 50-50 crapshoot. All the teams that make it last year, I think it was 14 teams, used to be 12, but they added 2. So now it's 14 teams made the playoffs. Yep. You could bet only 7 are going to make it back. Everybody thinks it's a clinch that their team is going to make it a second year in a row. It's not quite that easy or that simple. So who do you think might be the leading candidate to not be back in the playoffs this year?
Yeah, and Wayne, you make such a great point. How number one, that's why you appreciate how difficult it is to get back. I remember talking to Dan Marino, and I seem to talk to Danny every year at the Super Bowl. But when we have the conversation and talk about Super Bowl winners, and I remember Dan told me this. He said, Sean, the very first time I went to that Super Bowl in 80, was it 83 Super Bowl?
83, I think. Yeah.
84, right
83,
in there.
84.
And then he had the big season. Yeah, right. He said, I thought I was going to got beat by San Francisco, I believe it was. He said, I thought I was going back 5 or 6 more times, and I never went back.
Right.
So you tell people to cherish it. The playoffs are hard, too. For me, Wayne, I think you're right. We could go and say, well, let's look at the AFC South. This team's not as good. Maybe the Saints take a step back, depending on Jameis. I'm going to go with one that I hate to say this because I just don't know if their offense is going to do enough, but their defense will keep them in it. And if the Cowboys, because I only think one team from the East, NFC East, is going. Only one.
Go.
If Prescott's healthy, they win the division.
So
and only one team goes. Now, if Prescott's not, it brings everybody into play. As much as I like the Washington, Jack Del Rio, a dear friend, and I root for Ron Rivera, I don't know if they have enough offense. Now, their defense is friggin' nasty.
Right.
But it's a bad division for the most part. I like the Cowboys. I think win the division by 2 games. I'm going to say Washington stays home this year because not enough offense, even though I'm rooting for them to make it. I hope I'm wrong.
Now, I asked you the question, but I always like to chime in, right? And I said we're like brothers
Please,
with another
I wanna
mother.
hear
It's,
it.
it's bizarre because I'm sitting here thinking no matter who he picks, I'm going to come back with the Washington Redskins, and you pick the Washington Redskins. Redskins are not going to the playoffs this year. Great defense. And by the way, Fitzpatrick was a good pickup, far superior to anyone they had last year at quarterback. But I don't believe picking a 38-year-old guy who has never made the playoffs with, is it 6 prior teams or 8 prior teams? How is that your guy
Minimum,
to lead you to playoffs?
Yeah.
He's bound to have a bad year at the age of 38. He's not Tom Brady. There's only one Tom Brady who could play into his 40s. I just don't think Fitzpatrick is Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. So I think Washington is going to have a first-place schedule and be a lot tougher year this year than it was last year, and I think they'll be out of it. So once again, brothers from another mother. Great. Love the way you think.
Right here.
All right. So
I'm with you, my man.
Question number 2 is Kansas City. So who's the biggest challenger in the West to Kansas City? And can any of them actually beat Kansas City and relegate the Chiefs to a wild card? Sean Salisbury.
For me, the biggest challenger, I was thinking about the Raiders, but their defense concerns me. Denver's got a great roster. Quarterback concerns me. I am concerned about the Chargers. The second year of Herbert, I think they're the best team. Now, I'm a diehard, lifelong Raider fan, so I'm hoping that the Raiders are the one. But I think Herbert's real. You go through that roster, Wayne.
Good roster.
They're loaded, man. They are loaded on that roster, and defense will be better. I think Herbert's the real McCoy. I think this team's a definite threat. And I don't know about a threat. I think Kansas City's still a couple games better. But if I was picking a team to make the wild card from that division right now, it would be no question in my mind right now, the Chargers are the second best team. But I'm hoping the Raiders have one of those years where John finally explodes and they win 11 games and get in.
Now, on this one, it's not that I disagree with you. Chargers are loaded. But every year they're loaded. Every year they disappoint. I like the Denver Broncos. I got to think they've got one of the 2 or 3 best defenses in all of football, just like Washington. And just like Washington, their problem is they don't have the right quarterback. But if they could develop, a rhythm with their quarterback, and I'm not even sure who the starter is going to be, but if they get some decent action from their quarterback, they got a great running game, and they got a fabulous defense. So I could see Denver making a lot of noise in the West. I don't see them beating Kansas City, but I could see them winning the wild card.
Right.
So that would be my choice. So you take Los Angeles Chargers, I'll take Denver Broncos, and may the best man win. How about that?
Fair enough. I like my quarterback better than yours in Denver right now, though, so I'm going to stick with that guy. There you go.
Here's a question I got from you, because you sent me a couple you really wanted to talk about. Do we want to freeze it for a minute? Is there something wrong with the picture or the sound? Are we okay?
You're back now.
Okay.
You're back.
All right.
Yep.
I saw something going on over there. So yeah, I'm going to start the question over again. All right. So here's one that Sean sent me, texted me last night. You wanted to talk about the NFL and winning a championship, and is it more important to have a great offense or a great defense in today's NFL? And I'll bet I know what you're going to say based on what you just said about the Washington Redskins, right? You got to have a great offense no matter how good your defense is. But you're the quarterback. Give us the story.
Yeah, Wayne, I think you and I are on the same page in a lot of things, and this being at the top of the list. And I was thinking, okay, look at Kansas City. Middle-of-the-road defense last year and the Super Bowl. Even the year they won it, middle-of-the-road defense. And I think the days have changed where you can go best defense in the league, middle-of-the-road offense, and win a championship. You'd have to be very lucky and have injuries or luck along the way. But you give me Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, Josh Allen, the
Prescott.
best of the best. Russ Wilson, yes. That guy can overcome. Maybe a defense gave up 30, but we'll score 34. So I'll have it the other way. I need a top 5 offense, a middle-of-the-road defense, and I can win it. Now, if I get both, well, then I'll have home field advantage and win 16, 17 games. But I'm going offense all the way, and you must have a dominant quarterback. And if you don't, somewhere along the line in January, you'll get beat.
All right. And by the way, I agree with you 100%. But from my standpoint as a handicapper, I want to tell you, great offenses win the Super Bowl. Sean's 100% right. Great defenses cover the point spread week in and week out. If you want to win against point spreads, defense is everything because people always bet on the offense, and therefore they're overvalued in the point spread, and you get great value with the defense. And when it comes down to the last drive of the game, you need to stop once in a while, and so to cover a point spread, and that's what you get from a great defense. But no question, the days of great defense winning Super Bowls are behind us. This is all about the quarterbacks and the offense. Last question. This is kind of a fun one. So a bettor at Caesars walks into Caesars and puts this just happened, puts $38,000 on Tampa Bay to go 17-0. And if he's right, he wins $1.3 million. Do you think that's a good bet? Or do you think that's a big mistake and he just blew $38,000 on a dream that's never going to happen again? There's not going to be any 17-0. And who do you think can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year for their only loss, if they only have one loss? Who would it be, Sean Salisbury?
Yeah. Wait, I love this question, man. When you said this to me, I'm like, I love this. We're going to have a blast with this. First off, if you're betting $38,000 to win what was it? You said about 1.3 million. Then that's called if you have kiss my ass money, which maybe he does, then throw it up there and let's go because it's a big payoff, right? But if you're one of those guys like me that I cringe at throwing $38,000 for $1.3, even though I like the gambling side of it, I'm going to say that he's going to lose his money. They're not going 17-0. Wayne, the pressure that continues to build. You already mentioned the great quarterbacks in the league. Think about every week. You're going to run into somebody who's going to be hotter than you, right? And Brady will give you one clunker throughout the year. And you look at it, you got Dallas, the Rams, New England, New Orleans, Buffalo. I'm going to tell you this, Buffalo is the team on that schedule. I got them like at 14-3, 15-2. I think they're that good, and I think they should be the favorite. But I'm going to lean towards keep an eye on the Buffalo game, even though it's at home, I believe, in Tampa. Josh Allen's real. Their defense is real, and they can score with them. That'll be one of their losses this year. If it's only one, look to Buffalo.
The funny one in this one would be, how would you like to be this guy that bets $38,000 on a 17-0 season, and on opening Thursday, the Dallas Cowboys upset Tampa Bay?
Oh, I know.
Can you imagine how much pain that dude's going to be
Screw the whole time.
And it could happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because all you need is
and
Prescott
Wayne,
to get lucky, throw a touchdown in the fourth quarter, the Cowboys inch it out. You never know what's going to happen.
And their offense, Wayne, is good enough.
I know.
Yeah, you love this team. Their offense is good enough to do it. And you always want to get Brady early, just like Belichick, right? Like a good college team. I'd rather play Alabama in week 1 than week 8. You know what I'm saying in college, Wayne? And I know as a gambler, you know what I'm talking about trends. I sure as hell would rather get Tampa Bay at the beginning than I would 8 games in. And Prescott's capable of a 400-yard game. Yeah, that's a danger game, but boy, would that suck for him and have to deal with the whole season losing $38,000 in the opener. That'd be a trip.
But even as the big Cowboy fan, that's not the one I'd bet on. I would put my money on the game where they're playing. Tampa Bay is at the LA Rams. And I think the Rams will upset Tom Brady at Tampa Bay. I think the Rams are going to the Super Bowl this year. And I think that the Rams are the best team in football this year. And I'll take the Rams against Tom Brady every time. That's my pick for the number one opportunity for an upset of Tampa Bay this year, far in advance. You know, we're all doing a crapshoot here, but I would circle that game. But either way, Tampa Bay's not going 17-0. It just doesn't happen. And so I'll take that bet every single time. I'll pay you your $1.3 million, buddy. Give me the $38,000 right now, and I'll take the chance.
And you know, one last thing, Wayne, I know we got to go, is with that, the mounting pressure, what happens is you learn to start to play not to lose as a play to, like there's 13-0 and 14-0. Then you get to a point you're protecting undefeated as opposed to just focusing on football. Right. And that's the problem. And sometimes coaches, even though they'd like to go undefeated, give that one loss ain't going to hurt us because that'll refocus us. They're not going 17-0. That guy's going to lose his money.
I seem to remember that happened with the Colts and Peyton Manning. Didn't they bench him so he'd get some rest in the very last game when they were I don't know if they were undefeated or they were like 15-1, 14-1. But I remember they benched Peyton, they put in their backup, and then they got crushed. And then they went into the playoffs after that. So there's a lot of hurdles to going 17-0. In any case, love to talk with you, love to hang with you, and love to swap stories and wisdom. Sean Salisbury, thanks. Great segment.
Wayne, love it. Thank you, bud. I'll see you next week.
All right, listen, Wayne, I had an extra 38 grand. I wanted to put it on Tampa Bay. I thought they could go 17-0. Fine. Keep making fun of me. Anyway, listen, guys, thank you so much for being here. Sean, as always, Fridays are my favorite day of the week. For most people, they are because they're done with work, but it's my one work day of the week. And Jim Leyritz, Jim, you had us on your podcast. Tell us about your podcast real quick and where people can find it.
Yeah, it's called Catching Heat with Jim Leyritz. It's on Apple. It's all the podcasts. And it's just about former athletes, former celebrities that have gone on to a different career or started a foundation or charities that are using what they got, what God gave them as far as their career goes, to help other people. And there's some great stories. A lot of people, I've had on Darryl Strawberry telling his story that, only people knew about him getting kicked out of baseball. They didn't know that he's preaching the Bible now and bringing people to God and creating, centers all around for rehab. I want to be able to do something positive, some positive things that people are doing with what they were giving from their careers for other people, not just themselves. And it's been I think we've done 22 episodes and we're going to do a lot more. And it's just to get positive stories out there, what these athletes are doing, because Sean, as soon as we leave the game, we're not important anymore.
Right.
And there's so many other things that people do better than winning championships and World Series to help other people. I think it's important to put the spotlight on those also.
You're crushing it, and we are so grateful to have you on, brother. You know how I feel about you, and to get the laughs and stories. We got to do this again. Matter of fact, when your Yankees are at home watching the World Series, you can come on and we'll talk about Boston, okay?
There you go.
I love it. All right, Jim,
I think you were talking about Tampa Bay.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. And remember, check out those acid wash jeans. Look at those.
Nice
Field
one,
of Dreams,
Bob.
baby. By the way, Sean, Rocky beat Remember the Titans in the finals of that movie, greatest sports movie of all
That's
time.
fair. I'll
Yeah.
take that. That's a good 1-2 punch. Both of them can win.
Titans was
Fair
your
enough.
favorite. Rocky's the best. We'll see you next week on Krush House. Come back for Winners with Wayne Allyn Root. Come back for more podcasts. Check out Catching Heat with Jim Leyritz. Look at this stud. Look at him all by himself in a cornfield.
All right, it's been a great Krush House show. And as always, I urge you to go to vegaswinners.com because we've got all the great sports handicapping information and analysis and guidance and advice. And it's free just for registering at vegaswinners.com. Register and the advice is free. vegaswinners.com, as well as a lot of other great stuff too. You have a chance to win prizes, you have a chance to win trips to Vegas, and you can watch all our Krush House videos at vegaswinners.com. Have yourselves a great week. Win, baby.
Is the over-under.
Fucking chocolate.